Hello, hello, and welcome once again. J76NY here, back with President Anton Rayne in Sordland. After the very disappointing rejection of our constitutional reforms in the last episode, we have to look forward, try and stay positive. Members of my administration are just heartbroken over it. So we will see what the story has for us in the future. First thing we have to do is Rumburg whistleblower arrives. It's a high-level agent has escaped from Rumburg and seeks refuge in Sordland. So that could be kind of a touchy situation. And then over here we've got a movie premiere in Erloy to go to. Let's get the serious business out of the way first. A whistleblower from Rumburg Security Bureau has escaped to Sordland by crossing the border and turned himself in to the authorities in Estord. Agent Chelston Hailstone has promised to reveal extensive sensitive information about the developments of a weapons program. We can give refuge to him and risk antagonizing Rumburg or send him back. Well, Rumburg is already kind of an enemy, so I'm thinking we should grant him asylum and see what he has to say. This could potentially start a war with someone who's vastly more powerful than us, but sending him back would probably send the wrong signal to our allies. So we're going to grant him asylum. Okay. Whistleblowers in a safe house. After receiving Agent Chelston Hailstone, we have secretly transferred him to a safe house near Antel. The perimeter is guarded by Special Forces unit to ensure no escape or rescue attempt can be conducted by Rumburg intelligence. The agent is currently being interrogated thoroughly to make sure that the preliminary information provided is accurate. Alright. Anything else we have to attend to? If you are new here and unfamiliar with Suzerain, it is a text-based political simulator where you play Anton Rayne, the elected president of Sordland. Pretty fun game to play. It's interesting to see how the choices that you make affect the story. I've watched a couple playthroughs, and there's a lot of different paths that the Rayne administration can take. Some of them not so good. And apparently the whistleblower was no secret, because it's in the newspaper. So, who is Chelston Hailstone and what does he know? That's the question of the day, as President Rayne has agreed to grant refuge to this rogue national security agent from Rumburg. After escaping to Sordland, Hailstone promised to reveal sensitive government information. Blah, blah, blah. Whether Rayne's decision will be worth the anger and possible retaliation from the Rumburg government remains to be seen. So that could very well go south very fast. Let's go watch a movie. I had been invited to an exclusive preview of Alfred Serbuck's new film, The Morning Shall Come. Although I wasn't in much of a movie-going mood, it would have been unpresidential not to attend. With its massive budget and Kubrick, wink wink, directional cachet, this drama was set to be a milestone for Sordland's burgeoning film scene. Personally, though, I was just looking forward to spending some time with my family. This is my family, my wife, my son, and my daughter. It was a very hot and sunny day as Serge drove us to the old capital. The film was to be screened in the historic cinema Angli del Orloy at the very first cinema in Sordland. Serge had maxed out the air conditioning to keep the Cadilla comfortable. I kept silent through most of the ride on the H1. I couldn't get my mind off the results of the assembly vote. Frank fidgeted with his tie as he stared out the window. Okay, worried about the university exams. What's wrong, Frank? And ignore him and talk to my wife. So I'm going to ask my son what's wrong. Since when do you care what's happening in my life? Wow, what a dick. You know I'll support you whatever you pass or fail those exams. I've been busy lately, but I'll always have time for you. I will support you no matter what, my son. What an honor, your highness. Okay. Don't talk to your father that way. He's been working so hard for the country. Okay, I'm going to ignore him now because he's obviously got a bug up his ass about something. Excited for the movie, sweetie? Deanna nodded happily. What about you, Papa? I know you're sad, but failure helps us grow, right? Could have worded that a little different, dear. I'm just fine. Thanks for the reminder. I don't think I'm going to snap at my daughter. She's always been nice. It's my son that's kind of a little prima donna. Put on a happy face. Of course, let's just focus on having a nice time at the movies. Monica folded her arms. We drove on in silence. Serge rolled down the soundproof glass between us. Sir, we are about to enter Erloy. We'll be at the cinema in a few minutes. Thanks, Serge. I took a brief look outside as Serge rolled the soundproof glass up again. I could see the many towers of Erloy rising over what was left of the old city walls. In the distance, there were several planes flying towards the city. As they got closer to us, I saw that they were military planes that looked like Arcasian designs. They were probably headed for our new joint military base. Wasn't your vineyard around here? I did buy a vineyard somewhere around here. Monica pointed at the hills on the outskirts of the city. It's not mine, it's ours. It's just behind those hills. We should go there sometime. That would be lovely. Serge knocked on the glass and gestured forward. We were at the main square in Erloy, and the historic Cinema Angli, the Cinema of Angels, was right in front of us. Is this the place? Yeah. It was an old Baroque-style corner building with walls that looked like marble from a distance. There was exquisite ornaments on each side of every window. Serge pulled the car to the entrance of the building, which was lit by vivid neon stripes in many colors. On the wall next to the entrance, they were painted the words, "Stop the oppression of bloods." Come on, let's get out. Serge opened the door and we exited onto the red carpet. We were just about to enter the building when a journalist managed to block the path. Mr. President, how are you handling the defeat of your constitutional reforms in the Assembly? I'm going to keep fighting for my change. This isn't over yet. I will respect the Assembly's decision, and not very well, to be honest. I'm going to keep fighting for my changes. I believe in them. I think it will help Sordland out, and the people of Sordland really supported it, so it's really a disappointment that it didn't go through. Thank you, Mr. President. And were you aware that Tarqin Sol would be present at the proceedings? No, I had to find out from my driver. I'm not going to talk about it. Before she could ask anything else, the guards ushered us inside the theater. In contrast with the cinema's Baroque-style exterior, the interior was modern and sleek, with bare walls painted in black, red, and white. The film's cast and crew were already in the foyer, with glasses of champagne in their hands. We approached the crowd and were welcomed by the producers and the event organizers. A man walked up to us with quick steps. Madam, Mr. President, it's good to see you here. This is the film director, Stanley Kubrick. He gently bowed at Monica and shook her hand. It's an honor to meet you. I'm Alfred Serbic. Who? Nice to meet you, Mr. Serbic. I'm going to be doing another playthrough where I pick the douchiest option and that they offer at any time. Call it the D-bag playthrough. Really interesting to see how that one plays out. But for now, I'm being the nice guy. My producers told me you had expressed admiration for my work. Frank snorted. I glanced at him, and he incessantly took a sip of his cola. It's very humbling to know that you've been watching and enjoying my movies. If you don't mind me asking, which one was your favorite? This one may be slightly different than my previous works. Well, let's get specific, even though I have no idea what he's talking about. I love The Swordish Dream. Oh, really? Then you might enjoy this one, too. I'll admit, I didn't expect you to be such a cinephile. Frank looked at me in the eye and struggled not to laugh. Why don't we take our seats? It's about to start. We entered the screening room, the lights dimmed, and the film began. It was a period drama set in the 1870s about a Swedish soldier who pursues a doomed romance with a widowed Bludish farmer during the conquest of Bergia. I wondered briefly whether Serbuk was commenting on my own treatment of the Bludish people. I haven't exactly been a friend to the Bluds. But then, he had finished filming long before I became president. As the credits rolled, I made an early exit to use the men's room. I was washing my hands when I heard an unmistakable voice behind me. Tarqin Sol. What's he doing here? Corners me in the bathroom. So what did you think? Tarqin Sol leaned on his cane. He had the same frail appearance I'd noticed at the assembly meeting, yet up close I could still sense the raw magnetism that had kept him in power for over 20 years. I found the plot questionable, but it certainly looked spectacular. What about yourself? Drivel. Dangerous pro-Bludish propaganda. I ought to have it banned. We'll go with the first one. Sentimental pablum for the enjoyment of housewives only, and for a period piece, the script contained far too many anachronisms. Here we go. The hell were you doing at the assembly vote, Mr. Sol? Enough small talk. Why were you at the assembly? I'm surprised to see you're still around, sir. What were you doing at the assembly? Get right to the point. My country was about to make a rash decision. I couldn't simply sit by. Are you pleased with the outcome? You've succeeded for now, but you won't be able to stop me for long. It's not your country anymore. I still have immense respect for you, Colonel. I wish it was reciprocated. Which one to do? I don't want to do this one, because that's kind of dickish. You've succeeded for now, but it won't be able to stop me for long. I don't know if I really have respect for the guy, though. Just ask him if he was pleased with the outcome. And he was. There was a glint in his eye. Why did you block my reforms? A true president knows when he must step down. Let's find out why he blocked the reforms. I will not let you and that bleeding heart idiot Richter tarnish my precious constitution. Richter's a better man than you ever were. Your constitution is ancient history. I'm doing this for the good of the country. My reforms will bring Sordland into the future. That's an honest reply. He obviously didn't think so. Ha! Some of his spittle landed on my cheek. Okay. If Sordland remains in your hands, the only future I see is anarchy. At least I can admit it. I never did like you. You had your chance to lead. Everyone saw what a mess you made of it. Okay. I've known it since you opposed me all those years ago. You spineless, backstabbing weasel. Storm out. History will show who's what, Colonel. What if we can get into a fistfight in the bathroom? I think I could take him. He's old. History will show who's what. I stormed past him and out the door. Sol's security staff and mine were now clustered outside the washroom, forming a buffer against the large crowd that had gathered. That's Tarqin Sol. I heard someone scream. Well, his guard closed around him, and mine around me. By the time the chaos subsided, I was back in the car with my family, and Sol was long gone. Okay, so that was exciting. We have here. Bill signed protest in Bergia. Okay. After the passing of the language bill, a wave of Blutish protesters have risen in calling for its revocation. Governor of Bergia, Felix Braun, reported that the situation has been brought under control and the regional police forces have been tasked with increased patrolling duties around the majority of Blutish towns in Bergia. Nothing from Rumburg yet. What do we have here? Read the report from Dyer and ceremonial duty for the day of dissension. Okay. And over here we have dinner with the family and briefing on the diplomatic strategy. Let's read the papers. And then have dinner with our family. Rayne and Sol meet at Cerbic screening. The recent exclusive screening of the film that we just watched was attended by an unexpected guest, former President Tarqin Sol, rarely seen outside of his home on Duru Island since his 1949 resignation. Current President Anton Rayne was also in attendance, and the two men were seen together in the bathroom. Unified Language Bill has been signed into law by President Rayne after the approval of the Grand National Assembly by majority vote on Thursday following a 3-hour debate. Kizaru Keebner, who campaigned heavily for the bill, it didn't stop Keebner from sticking it to me. Alright, well. Sordland today. Rayne to keep fighting for reforms following Assembly defeat. Despite the Grand National Assembly's voting down his planned constitutional reforms, President Anton Rayne declared he would keep fighting for the changes he had proposed. Speaking outside the historic Cinema Angli in Erloy ahead of an exclusive preview of Rayne did not provide any details on how he would challenge the Assembly's final decision, merely stating this isn't over yet. Looks like our language bill that I signed into law is popular with everyone but the Blutish. Lockhaven Times. One film, two very special guests. President Rayne, who made the trip from Holsword with his family, and former President Tarqin Sol, barely seen on the mainland since 1941. It's rumored the two of them spoke in the washroom following the film. See what the Radical has to say. Washroom Summit. Ha! Everyone's talking about me and the old man in the bathroom. What are they hiding? This ought to be good. At a screening of Alfred Cerbic's overblown sob story, The Morning Shall Come, President Anton Rayne and former President Tarqin Sol were seen exiting the men's room together. Well, the illicit is not out of the question. It is far more likely the two inveterate politicians were making backroom deals about which the Sordish public, as usual, would be kept in the dark. The Radical is committed to getting to the bottom of the meeting. Okay. That's interesting. As disappointing as Anton Rayne's presidency has been, we never thought he would stoop this low. The president just approved the NFP, proposed law that makes Sordish the only allowed language in all of the country's educational institutions, with the Ministry of Education in charge of granting specific exceptions. This can only be seen as a deliberate slight against the Blutish people, and kills any hope of Sordland becoming a more diverse and welcoming nation under Rayne's governance. We urge you to fight this new law, whether by writing to your local lawmaker, joining protests, or simply showing your defiance by speaking non-Sordish languages in public. Okay, no surprise the Radical is not happy. Let's read the reports before we have dinner. Thousands of Blutish students dropped out of their schools in protest after teachers were forbidden from to use the Blutish language in teaching. A Blutish teacher who did not abide by the new law was reportedly arrested by the regional police forces in Bergia for teaching mathematics in Blutish. Let's have dinner. I arrived home from work, hung my jacket up, and put my briefcase in the hall. I paused, awaiting my usual greeting from my wife and daughter. Deanna was out at one of her after-school art classes, I remembered, but where was Monica? From the living room, I heard a muffled sob. Uh-oh. I entered to find Monica sitting on the sofa, a letter in her hands and a look of despair on her face. What's wrong? Monica briefly rested her head on my shoulder, then handed me the letter. It's from the Department of Education. Frank's university exam results are in. Oh. How did he do? He failed, didn't he? A little shit. See for yourself. I looked at the page. Below Frank's name and address, his score was written. 435 points out of a total of 1,000. Wow, that's pretty bad. At the bottom of the letter, the word failed was stamped in red. All those years of effort, all those private lessons, all down the drain. Does he know about the results yet? No, but he should be back from school very soon. I just don't understand. Frank's a smart boy. Why would he sabotage himself like this? I heard a key turning in the front door. Frank stomped in and was about to go straight upstairs when he noticed us both in the living room. Mom, Dad, what's going on? Have a seat, Frank. He took a seat from across from us and I handed him the letter. He started reading it. Oh, shit. Son, we're not angry at you. Or I could lash into him. Well, I did tell him we'd support him, so... I need a moment. He went in the kitchen sink and washed his face. A moment later, he came back. I never thought this would happen. I'm so sorry. It's my fault. I should have been around to help you study. How could you let us down? You made your mother cry. It's not the end of the world. Maybe I should have been around to help him study. Right, you should have taken a break from running the country to help your loser son. Frank looked close to tears. Monica put her hand on his shoulder. It's going to be okay, but you really should have studied harder, Frank. I know. So what am I supposed to do now? Well, there's always military school, but you're the president's son. You still have options. Or you'll go to military school. This is the only place that'll have you. We're not going to go with that one. Yes! Monica surprised me with her enthusiasm. If Alfonso could get his dimwit son into Kings Hill University, I'm sure Whole Sword State would have room for a bright boy like Frank. Not going to take lessons from Ewald Alfonso. I am a respected alumnus, it's true. Would be nice to have him closer to home. We'll go with that one. Whole Sword State would be amazing. A bunch of my friends are going there. I could still come home to do my laundry. Terrific. Whole Sword State it is. -1 on the personal wealth. You could study abroad. Well, let's offer him options. You know how I feel about communists, but United People's University in Cantana is free. It also has an excellent medical program. Communism? I can dig that. Oh, great. Not exactly how I was expecting to spend my student years, but anything's better than the military. This is the future of our boy, Anton. What should we do? I'm going to send him to Whole Sword State University. I don't like how giddy he was about communism. Monica let out a long exhale. What a day. Who's hungry for dinner? Monica disappeared to the kitchen, Frank to his room. I went to my office and began making some phone calls. And I'm broke again. There's quite a lot to go through here. Still nothing from Rumberg. Kind of surprised about that. Read the report from Rybel. Rural education improved significantly. Rybel is reporting higher test scores and attendance rates since its education facilities were equipped with new textbooks and state-of-the-art teaching materials. The overhaul was a result of the decision to channel more funding into rural schools. So there's something we did right. See what Narble has. New school completed. Narble celebrated the opening of its new secondary school, a 2-story building with 50 classrooms and state-of-the-art teaching equipment. The school was funded as part of the government initiative to improve rural access to education. Okay, seaport's coming along nicely. Supreme Court files Urson versus Sordland dissent. The Supreme Court has filed a 8-3 dissent and closed the Urson versus Sordland case. Chief Justice Hawker dismissed the concurrent of the Ministry of Justice, citing that the Religious Harmony Bill doesn't prevent Bludish people from practicing religion in any way, shape, or form. Further press releases were made criticizing the words of the Vice Minister of Justice. Bludish constitutional rights won't be in question for some time. Okay. What's the newspapers have to say now? Court strikes down Urson versus Sordland. Osraven. Hero to some, enemy to others. He is for sure one of the most controversial figures to have ever lived in our country. As his anniversary is approaching, there is one question that is shared in everyone's mind. What will the administration do, and who would you be? Bludish carpenter who was killed by Sordish soldiers during his protest against the construction of Sol Dam. Let's see. Every year people gather in Suzerain to hold a vigil and solemn anniversary of his death. They light their candles in his memory and hold cultural festivals. What is different this year, however, are the claims that the Bludish movement will be holding their largest rally yet in Suzerain during the anniversary. Perhaps it is time for the administration to let bygones be bygones and take a step back to display this unity of Sordland to the people who very much need it. And then the next article is Enough with the Bludish Protest. Kind of a mixed signal here. Once again, the Bludish protests in the country have claimed its toll. This time, the toll was an injured child. On his way home from school, 13-year-old DK unknowingly entered the protest grounds. The police tried to suppress the protesters, and the chaos ensued. Trapped between the police and protesters, he was injured in the following stampede. His treatment still continues in Hulsor General Hospital. Okay. Educational privatization. Are our children doomed? As we expected, Anton Rayne's decision to privatize the Sordland educational system has a serious deleterious effect. That's not what all the reports are saying. Young people in rural and low-income areas are being increasingly priced out of the education they deserve. As proof, witness the higher-than-ever gap between test scores in Narble and Hulsor. We had high hopes for Education Minister Kiera Walda when Rayne first appointed her, but she seems to be enabling his delusions that corporations will solve all of the Sordland's problems. Justice once again failed. As expected, the Supreme Court ruled against Urson versus Sordland case. The massive rights case has struck down any future precedent for an argument to be made against the constitutional rights violations of the individuals through legislative action. Chief Justice Hawker argued that legislative action and constitutional acts are not to be confused and that the Bludish people are equal under law. The Solist constitutionalist justices are going as far as they can to bend the truth to hide the inequalities of our society. The fight for justice will continue. Alright, so let's Let's go to this briefing on diplomatic strategy. The doors to the White Room, like everything else in the Maroon Palace's main nerve center, were painted white. I took a deep breath before pushing them open. Time for yet another meeting. At least this time it was with people who liked me. The attendees rose from their seats. Mr. President, Joseph nodded. He and Lucian sat down, with David remaining standing. Now that you're here, let's talk about our diplomatic strategy. Mr. President, if I may, I would like to provide you with a short overview of where we are right now. Nod and gesture for him to begin. Although we did not make a trade deal with Agnolia, we succeeded in making one with Wayland, which means we have increased our presence in the region. These deals were an important piece of leverage and significant first steps into the global arena. You must now look towards the future. It's time to take the next steps. Precisely. He sat down, pulled out a few papers, and started going through them as he kept talking. Wayland and Agnolia were practice runs. We must begin improving our relationships with the greater nations. We need to elevate our international standing, especially with the threat of Rumburg looming. Joseph cleared his throat. Thanks to your wise investments, Sordland's army is on its way to becoming a force to be reckoned with. Whether it be Rumburg or anyone else, we can handle outside threats just fine. We don't need to beg for help from anyone. But being friendly won't hurt, right? Thank you for your input. I will consider it. You are right. I will not let Sordland look weak. But being friendly won't hurt, right? I agree. He's like my Secretary of State. He's my Secretary of Defense. And he's my Chief of Staff. There's nothing to be lost by making alliances. A military perspective is important, but these deals are about more than just gaining allies. We also need to consider the benefit to our economy such deals will provide, especially when we are still struggling to end the recession. As you see, our economy is in the tank, and it has been for just about the entire game. At the start of our term, I had a comprehensive trade deal plan laid out. Following the visits to Wayland and Agnolia, we were to pursue potential trade deals with two greater nations. Volgsland is one of them. Volgsland is the Democratic Republic of Volgsland, commonly known as Volgsland, is a socialist republic situated on the island of Volgos. If we can manage to get them to the table, there is much more potential here than in Wayland or Agnolia. Because they are one of the most important countries in CSP, a deal with Volgsland is the ticket to bring Sordland closer to the United Kantanen sphere. We should do whatever we can to get them on our side. Dealing with countries in CSP, let's see what this is. The Kantanen Security Pact is an intergovernmental military alliance between 9 countries, led by United Kantana. Okay. Let's do what we can to get them on our side. I agree. Volgsland is certainly powerful enough to deter Rumburg. Moving on to Lesbia. Lesbia is officially the Republic of Lesbia, is a country in eastern Marcopa with some pockets of territory in the Antacean Sea. Parliamentary Republic, currently governed by Democracia Lesbia Party with Patricio Alvarez as its prime minister. Our southern neighbor is one of the wealthiest countries in eastern Marcopa. A trade deal with them would be very beneficial, not just for our economy, but also for our regional and international presence. Not to mention that they are in the Arcasian sphere. Because we would be following through with our promises to lean westward, this would also strengthen our voter base. Indeed, this deal could also be the first steps in allying ourselves with Lesbia, or maybe even entering ATO, which is the Arcasian Trade Organization, is an intergovernmental military alliance between 14 countries. So either one of these is a step in the right direction. However, we are going for a free market approach, so allying ourselves with a socialist nation might not be the way we want to take the country. Trade deal with Lesbia could open many doors for us. True, a country as influential as Lesbia could help elevate our economy. That's it for the overview. As to the actual contents of the trade deal, Lucian. He pulled out his small notebook and quickly flipped through the pages until he landed on the right one. Looking at my stats here, we now have a small tungsten surplus, which makes an excellent resource for trade. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. I need to know your decision before we can proceed. What should we do? Well, let's go for both of them and see which one plays out the best. My inclination is Lesbia, but we can try them both. That was all I had for today. Thank you for coming. Thank you, gentlemen. Joseph saluted as we left the White Room. All right. Let's read the newspapers first here. Isolated polio cases seen in Bergia. Several villages in Bergia have been safely placed under quarantine after a few polio cases were diagnosed in the region. The outbreak is largely confined to Wayland, and there is little chance of further infection occurring in Sordland. Even if there was, the disease's most notorious symptom, paralysis, is only seen in a minute percentage of cases. All right. Lockhaven Times, polio cases exploding in Bergia. So Bergia has a problem with polio. That sucks. Rayne will visit both Vogsland and Lesbia for a trade deal. President Rayne has scheduled a visit for both Lesbia and Vogsland to discuss possible trade deals with the leaders of both countries. It is unclear what the goal of these trade talks will be, although some insiders speculate that Rayne is hoping to gather allies in anticipation of an eventual confrontation with Rumburg. What is clear is that it will be hard to negotiate with both Vogsland and Lesbia simultaneously without choosing sides between either Arcasia or United Cantana. Nothing's ever cut and dry here. Let's read these reports. Recession hits workers. As in the rest of Sordland, workers in Gelsord are bearing the brunt of the recession. The manufacturing sector has been hit particularly hard, as a record number of factory workers filed for unemployment over the past month. Okay, current losses value against Arcasian Lira. Currency loses value. There we go. I can read. Really, I can. Financial reports show that the Sordish Ren has steadily been slipping against the Arcasian Lira, though the exchange rate has not yet approached the all-time low reached during the Alfonso administration. So we may suck, but we don't suck as bad as our predecessor. Okay, we got some foreign affairs foreign reports to read. Arvory development speeds up following highway construction. The completion of the H3 highway between Lockhaven and Arvory has resulted in decreased logistical costs and higher traffic flow to the latter city. The pace of development in Arvory has consequently quickened significantly, with dozens of construction projects now on the horizon. That's good news. Healthcare quality improved. That's also good news. Reports from hospitals and clinics in Laren indicate a significant rise in the quality of healthcare since the additional funding was channeled into rural areas. Mortality rates appear to be decreasing, while patients are reporting a higher level of trust in physicians and medical facilities. Well, that's good. Makes me happy. Read the report from Dyer. The trade deal struck with Wayland continues to bear fruit as Bergia sees an upward trend in agricultural exports. Manufacturing industries are also celebrating the decreased production costs that have resulted from the uptick in importation of Wezek oil in the aftermath of the Operation Bear Trap. Alright, well that's good news. Ceremonial duty for the day of Dissension. Alright, let's do that here. Morning haze surrounded the city of Dire as the sun dawned on the day of Dissension, the holiest day of the Nuridi religion. It celebrated the first message received from God by Saint Dast and his 30 disciples. As per tradition, the celebration was held inside the arch-sanctuary of Desternity, closed to public eye. This year, however, for the first time ever, it was going to be televised. That was Lucian's idea, as he saw it granting the people a rare glimpse of the grand ceremony and showing them how seriously their president took his holy event, would ease any tension that lingered in the region. As soon as we arrived at the largest cathedral in Sordland, a huge crowd gathered around our convoy as the car pulled up to the entrance. This will work out well, trust me, sir. Of course, that's only if the prayer is done completely correctly. Please don't forget the order. First, you will need to grasp the holy scepter with your left hand, then touch the altar with your right. I should probably write this down so I don't fuck it up. So give me 1 second to write this down on a piece of paper. Altar. Right. Kneel before the archpriest and wait for him to put the sword on your shoulder. Okay, kneel. Then touch the sword with the hand you touch the altar with. That would be my right hand. Hand the scepter over to the archpriest and receive the sword before passing it to a disciple. Pretty straightforward, isn't it? And yeah, sure. I don't understand a word you said was one of the options. What are you talking about? Very good. You will have to go first. I will come inside later and we will meet up after your part is done. Good luck. I exited the car and was greeted by a chorus of cheers and camera flashes. I waved to the people as I made my way to the grand gate. The arch sanctuary was a sight to see. With its towering visage, it cast a shadow over a large portion of the city. I had to crane my neck to see the narrow spires at the top. Just standing next to it made me feel awe and dread in equal measures. As I reached the gates, I spotted my welcoming committee. The archpriest and his disciples were waiting for my arrival. At my approach, they all bowed their heads in respect. The archpriest gave me an infectious smile as he straightened back up. Tall and handsome in his mid-50s, he was one of the youngest and most popular archpriests in history. Some of his more avid followers even likened him to Saint Dast. Mr. President, praise God. It is a blessing to see you on our most holy day again. Welcome, welcome. Bow your head before the archpriest. I bowed my head before the archpriest, which triggered a few murmurs of approval from the crowd. The crowd was still cheering loudly. The archpriest turned and raised both of his hands, and everybody immediately fell silent. O great people of Sordland, once again we have gathered here to honor the day of Dissension. I am undescribably happy to be sharing this moment with you, as well as every blued and sword, old and young, tuning into their television to watch this holy commemoration. Along with the leader of our great nation, I say, let the holy day begin. Stay far from evil, O sons and daughters, for evil hides itself under many disguises. Disguises such as blasphemy, apostate, and even alcohol. Uh-oh. Might be kind of screwed here. Be good, my children. Praise God. Praise Sordland. You don't want to praise Sordland, Chris? It's a country. It's my country. My 7-year-old just went out to play. I don't think he's into this game. He smiled beautifully, beautifully, as the crowd burst into rapturous applause. After it subsided, he turned to me. Shall we move inside for your confession? Pull the archpriest aside for a photo. What confession? I didn't know I had to confess anything. Yes, just like last year. Every man must confess before the holy ceremony starts. Okay. Before we went in, the archpriest looked at the crowd and pointed at one man. I turned and followed his finger with my eye. It was a man holding a picket sign that said, "Stop the Religious Disharmony Bill." As you can see, every man has his faults. Oh, nice guy, thanks. So does every president. So does every archpriest, it seems. I take it you don't approve of the Religious Harmony Bill? Yes, that's right, but today is not the day to discuss that. He led me through the main hall, which has a stratospheric ceiling and Anurist icons lining the walls. We walked up a creaking spiral staircase to the top floor and finally arrived in front of the confession chamber. Right this way. He gestured towards a chair in the dark room. The room smelled of old mahogany and scented candles. The archpriest proceeded to light each and every one of the candles, one for each virtue and vice. I will be right with you. He left the room. A minute later, I heard the sound of a sliding window right next to me. He spoke with a very soft voice. Anton Rayne, speak. Speak and confess now before the one God, and he may repent your sins on the most holiest day of Dissension. Whoa, I get to confess something. Let's see. I confess that I was involved in bribery. I confess that I've been a bad husband. I confess that I am not sure what I am doing for Sordland is enough. I confess nothing. I haven't sinned. We'll go with that one. I confess that I am not sure what I am doing for Sordland is enough. You do carry a heavy burden on your shoulders. What you have confessed is not a sin, but you may share your burden with me if you like. I am trying to reform the country, but I don't know if the country is ready for it yet. Reformation is one of the tenets of nurity. Yet it must come slowly but surely. Anything else you would like to confess? Am I going to have to go through all of these? I'll tell him I got bribed. Why not? He's a priest. We all sin at one point in our lives. Such is the human nature as deemed by God. We sometimes sin because of necessity. Yet, like all, we must repent. Who was this sin committed with? Both. Walter Tusk. I see. This must have been done out of necessity for the greater good. Sure, we'll go with that. Anything else you would like to confess? Nope. I don't think I've been a bad husband, so we're good for now. Before God, I thank you for sharing. You are now forgiven before God, Anton Rayne. May you never sin again. The sliding window closed and the archpriest entered the confessional chamber. For the confession to end, you must extinguish the candles representing each of your virtues and vices. With this, the once burning sins connected to you are now smoke and then nothing else. And I put the candles out. Well done, Mr. President. Let's move on to my quarters before the ceremony. He led me through the 1,000-year-old corridors to his office. The smell of dust and old tomes was in the air, along with the scent of burning incense being prepared for the ceremony. Well then, please have a seat. The wooden chair next to him looked like it might turn to dust at a single touch. I sat down gingerly. It was surprisingly sturdy. Are you ready for the ceremony? Absolutely. Very good to hear. He leaned back in his chair comfortably. I wanted to talk to you about something. I realize it has been months since the Benfey Festival, but this is my first chance to bring it up with you. It's about the actions of the First Lady. As you know, the festival is a holy event. Letting a woman make the opening speech did not sit well with us. We share the same concerns as Mr. Lesty. A woman's place is beside her family, not giving public speeches and revealing dresses. Certainly not insulting the important traditions behind such an event. Disgust was apparent on his face. Of course, we cannot ask you to do anything about it. She is your wife. But I just wanted to voice our disapproval of the situation. A woman presiding over such an important religious event. What have we become? I let her do the speech because people like you still exist in Sordland. That's none of your business. At the risk of pissing him off, I'm going to go with this one. If we want to make progress, it's progress across the board, not just in government. His face turned sour and he did not reply. He looked me up and down for a moment. A couple knocks were heard on the door, and a young boy came in. You got some potato bugs. Cool, man.
And a worm.
Oh, there's a worm in there, too?
Yeah.
All right.
Alive.
Okay, all right. He bowed before the archpriest and then me before letting us know that the ceremony was about to begin. We made our way downstairs where the ceremony was already in progress, the choir sang angelically as the archpriest took his position beside the altar. When they finished their hymn, an expected silence fell over the room. It was time for my part. I started my walk, bowed and approached the altar. I'm glad I wrote this down. I have to grab the scepter with my left hand and then touch the altar with my right. So they give you the option to botch this. That's pretty cool. Alright. Then I have to kneel. Kiss the ring of the archpriest. That's not... They really give you the option to botch this. The archpriest laid the sword on my shoulder. Touch the sword with your right hand. There we go. Uh-oh. And the scepter to the disciples. The archpriest handed me the sword. He didn't get into this. I don't know what to do. I could very much mess this up. See if I can go back. Oh, I guess they only let me go back so far. I might be in trouble here. Maybe pass the sword to the disciple? I got up and proceeded to my designated spot next to Lucian. He leaned over and whispered in my ear. Oops, I messed it up. That was not quite correct. My eyes met the archpriest and he very slightly shook his head. The ceremony went on for another hour and a half. Finally, the noon bells chimed, making the end of the cathedral service. As I walked outside, I heard scattered boos. A man in a workers' party of Bludia shirt shouted that I was only here for show, that I couldn't even bother to get the ceremony right. Others yelled in agreement. Well, they didn't tell me about the passing of the sword. We should go before things get heated. We entered our cars and drove back to our suites in Dire. I got most of it right. Let's see what the radical has to say. Blasphemy or incompetence. Unbelievable, let alone leading a country. President Rayne is not even able to lead a religious ceremony, right? Whoops. Well, shit. Alright. So the next thing we have to do is a cabinet meeting on the results of the vote. I'm going to leave that for the next episode. All in all, I think we got some good news. Our little meeting with Tarqin Sol in the bathroom went about as well as to be expected. It got the radical wondering what we were talking about, so whatever. We took in the whistleblower from Rumburg, which so far has not produced any negative consequences. And we botched a religious ceremony. So, some good, some bad. Anyway, if you like the episode, hit that like button. If you have any tips or advice for the ongoing story of Anton Rayne, put those in the comment section. If you're new here and would like to follow along, hit that subscribe button, and you can come along with us as we move forward through the story of Sordland and President Anton Rayne. J76NY saying thank you very much for watching, and have yourself a very good day.